Greetings, all you Jackson Janets, and welcome to your daily dose of donkey with Ginger. It's your boy, the Viking Donkey, bringing you still named Steelers talk, but we're going to talk off-season stuff. Maybe a little bit of a thing I like to call what the NFL should do. It's going to be a fun little segment. I have a cool idea going on. I'm joined by Laskers. Sorry, guys, no Gingy, but Laskers, how's it going?
Oh, it's going. And, there's definitely a lot of things that could be potentially happening for Steelers universe, and we got to talk about it.
Only thing I've heard, I guess you could say Omar Khan had his little talk at the Combine. Woohoo! It's that time of year where you get to watch professional athletes who play in gladiator gear practice in their pajamas, as Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions, liked to call it. But Omar Khan did say a couple interesting things, I thought, last year. He said he would like to get a deal done with Cam Sutton. He does view that as important. And, of course, we've talked about that. We thought that was a good thing. Maybe the more surprising thing was the comment of he wants Mitch Trubisky to be here for a long time. I'm a little concerned about that, and I don't know if that was Omar Khan just reiterating the wishes of Art Rooney II. But Laskers, I am starting to get concerned that the owner of this franchise is starting to meddle in the affairs of how the franchise is run. And if you know anything about that, Dallas Cowboys, Vegas/Oakland Raiders, it doesn't ever seem to end well, Laskers.
You're just starting to get concerned? I've been concerned for a while. Though,
I guess you could point out the Ben thing.
I'm okay with Mitch Trubisky being the backup quarterback. Backup, not starter. Backup. Because, if he's put in as the backup, he's actually done pretty good. If he's put in as a starter, we're screwed.
I get your sentiment.
That's my point.
No, I get your sentiment fully. I don't disagree. I've said this to my wife a bunch of times. Mitch Trubisky's one of those bottom tier starters, top tier backup guys. Those guys are normally the guys who either have the intangibles and not the physical skills, or the physical skills and not the intangibles. To me, Mitch has the physical skills and not the intangibles. So I hear you on that.
He's not the starter.
But my bigger concern is his cap hit is high. Say what you want for a backup quarterback. I understand he's one of those fringe starters. So as a fringe starter, his cap hit's not high, but he's purely a backup. He's not a guy competing for a starting job. And more importantly to me is, does he want to be here? And can he help Kenny Pickett develop? Because what I think the Steelers should be doing right now is doing everything possible to make this as easy as possible for Kenny Pickett. That's investing in the offensive line, and that's getting him a mentor quarterback who's been there, done that, has got the job done. And to me, I'm going to say it, Laskers, I think it's Andy Dalton. I think that's the guy who I would want. Sorry, Mitch. I understand we have you under contract, but I really hope this is just a ploy by the GM to keep Mitch Trubisky as having a little bit of trade value, and maybe in the draft day flip him for a 5th-round draft pick or something.
No, actually, I'm good with your Andy Dalton suggestion. I mean, I think Andy Dalton has a lot more value than Mitch Trubisky. And he's been there, done that, Never a great quarterback, but he's got the talent to be a great quarterback, I'm going to say. It's just he never actually produced it.
Always a guy who had, in my opinion, the intangibles. He always looked like he could do it, but it was those out throws that he just didn't have the arm to make is what I always felt held Andy Dalton back. But more importantly to me, I want a guy who accepts the role as a backup quarterback. That's the big part there. But Laskers, any Steelers news or NFL news you want to get into before we get to this fun new segment of what the NFL should do in Donkey's opinion?
No, I actually can't think of any fun new news or anything like that. I'm still not sold on the Mitch Trubisky idea. I get it, but I also get what you're saying. He is overpaid and can't do that if you want to pay an offensive line, which we need to do. That's what we've struggled with for the last 3 seasons.
When you're a Steeler team that right now, after the NFL draft, would not be able to be under the salary cap, you're a team that needs to clear space. There are certain positions that you can't be afforded to pay a premium to. And that's just where he happens to fit in my opinion. But now I wish Gingy was here because I think this would have been a really interesting conversation to get his take on my thoughts about this. But Laskers, I want to create a thing in the NFL that is purely about the betterment of the long run of football. That means I want to see young talent be able to be retained and not given up on. I want the NFL to partner with spring football, whether it's the USFL, the XFL, or heaven forbid, create their own NFL developmental league and create a 10-man roster that doesn't do anything to the offseason rosters of NFL teams called a developmental squad. Now, the idea here is this roster is players who are, I'll explain it. I'm going to break it down into 3 points. The eligibility of this thing, the contract details, and how you can claim players from other teams. But the idea here is these are 10 players who are allowed to practice with the team the whole year, so they're part of the organization. They're there, much like the practice squad, except these players, if they're activated, you lose a spot on your developmental roster. And these players, unlike practice squads, get full contracts. But we'll explain that a little differently. But the idea is these 10 players are allowed to go into spring football and play the spring football games. I think it'd be a cool idea for the NFL to put apart a roster that allows players to be spring football players while limiting the amount of players. For me, it's 10. But giving NFL talent to these spring football leagues and giving some of these younger guys who maybe don't get a chance, practice squad guys, back of the roster guys, late round draft pick guys, a year to be with the team, focus fully on football, and then have a spring to show it off.
All right, so I got my Gingy counter, but I actually like the idea. 100% I like the idea. But the one thing I will say that would be Gingy's counter on this is the injury rate. That's where you got to be careful because, if you're going to play full speed NFL, and not saying that's what you're going to say, because the XFL is not full speed NFL. We know that.
I hear you on that, Laskers, and this is what I say to that. This roster isn't designed to be anything but guys who get a chance to develop. They're guys who get to spend. Essentially, what I'm doing is I'm giving 10 more people per football team a chance to be with the team the whole year and then a chance to go showcase themselves in a football thing and get development. And really what I'm looking at here, and this is my big take, is this is a great way to develop, in my opinion, young quarterbacks, give them a chance to get to a system and then give them a chance to play and see if people like them moving forward. And just really letting some guys who are fringe guys get a chance. Because let's be honest, when I'm talking this developmental squad, you're not talking guys who are going to make the active roster year 1, year 2. You're talking guys who need more seasoning. I'm not here saying anyone who's on a 53-man roster isn't eligible, right? If you play in the NFL that season, you're not eligible. That's the whole premise of this developmental squad, if that makes sense. It's to take those. I would assume you would take it to use more raw talent. Laskers is what I would say.
Your practice squad guy. Squad guy.
Essentially, yeah, you could say that, but this is where, here, I'll get into the roster breakdown idea, and maybe this will help clarify it. So the practice, or the developmental squad, it's going to be similar to a practice squad with the amount of players, but it's going to be made up of 5 players who are pure rookies. And those 5 players can be draft picks, and this is where I like it. These draft picks, this is what I like from the franchise perspective. These are draft picks who you don't lose their contract, but the contract plays out as if they were part of the active roster, right? But outside of signing bonuses, it wouldn't count against the active roster. So only money above, for the rookie part, it would be only the money of the contract, that's the signing bonus, would count, and that's how it is anyway. But you get to keep these rookies there. And there is a chance for other teams to claim them if they need them. But you can put 5 rookies on it. So say you have a 6th or 7th or 8th round, or 8th round, really. A 5th, 6th, or 7th round draft pick. Maybe even a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick who isn't going to make the team. You now can put them on this developmental squad. They get to stay with the team the whole year unless they're claimed by another team. and they get to play spring football so they can try to showcase themselves again. And it lets you keep your draft picks for another season, potentially, without having to go through the waiver claim process, the re-signing them, and then paying them twice because you have to pay the dead money of the contract they had before and the new contract if they make the team. And then it's made up of 5 veteran players who you would have to sign to 2-year developmental contracts, or else it doesn't make sense, because if you only sign them to 1 year, they'd be a free agent before spring football happens, right? So essentially, it's guys who are signed to 2-year contracts, and I'll go into the contract details with these guys too, because it just makes sense to use the contract details at the same time. Same as those guys, any money that's a signing bonus obviously has to go against the salary cap, and any money you pay above the vet minimum goes against your salary cap as a team. So if you have a guy, let's say you have a quarterback that you want to see get some action, he's your 3rd string guy, you can sign him to a developmental contract, give him a bonus, and the money counts against your cap for the extra bonus. But essentially, it's a way to prevent other teams from wanting to claim him, right? But it's a chance for you to get to see him in action the next year to see if he's made the steps you think necessary to become a backup. I really think that having the 5 guaranteed rookie slots and then the 5 veteran slots gives you a chance to progress the level of play of the NFL while also developing younger guys. And what I like is the idea of these guys get fully guaranteed contracts so that they don't have to worry about finding a second job or how they're going to make ends meet. Instead, they get to focus purely on football. And since they're with the team, it's just like now instead of having 60 players in the house, you have 70 players in the house. And I think that can only be for the betterment of the league. And that's how I would set up the eligibility, I guess.
I'm okay with your idea, except for being able to another team poach your players. So my suggestion for that is they have to pay for the exact contract. They cannot go over the contract if they want them. But if you want to keep them, you got to pay $10,000 over. Just a number.
Laskers, you are so very close to how I'm actually doing the claiming process. Remember, I haven't broken into all 3 steps. I do have the claiming process, and you actually put a couple things in there. So we talked about eligibility. We talked about the contract, right, and how the cap would be affected. My last point of it that I want to get into is the claiming players / activating players. Laskers, you're a baseball fan. What's the Rule 5 draft happen if you claim a player and you don't keep him on your 53 or your active roster? He gets offered back to the...
Yeah, I was going to say you get offered back and then you lose a draft pick, I think, right?
No, you don't lose a draft pick. You just offer back. They have to pay $25,000. I think he has to clear waivers first because any other team who wanted him can then take him and put him on an active roster. But we're not going to go full baseball here. So my idea here, and I hear you out. Okay, there's 2 different claiming pools. There's the rookie claiming pool and the veteran claiming pool. Let me break down the rookie claiming pool first, and you can tell me your thoughts on that. And then I'll break down my veteran claiming pool. So the rookie claiming pool is when you take this player from the other team, that player's any amount of the bonus remaining for that player is given to your salary cap. That player has to remain on your active 53-man roster, or you forfeit him back to the other team. You pay him the whole time he's there, so you pay that contract and it becomes active, so it's an actively paid contract. And any player who's claimed
active NFL contract.
Right. Any player who's claimed takes a $500,000 dead cap hit to that team next year. No matter what, for both claiming types, $500,000 dead cap hit to the team next year that has nothing to do with anything but being a preventative way to do it. And for the rookies, you have to trade to claim that rookie. You have to trade equal draft picks. So if it was a 2nd-round draft pick, you have to give up a 2nd-round draft pick in the next round. If you don't have a 2nd-round draft pick, then the draft pick above becomes the offer. If you don't have that pick to offer, you can't claim that player. And like I said, you must keep them there. You must give up that draft pick. And when you claim a developmental player from another roster, you must forfeit one of your developmental players, meaning you will only have, if you claim a rookie, you only have 4 rookie slots remaining. You have to forfeit one of your developmental rookies away from it. So it really is an idea of trying to give equal value to teams who lose a player. But at the same time, if a team really liked a guy who was like a fourth-round running back, they get a running back injury, it doesn't prevent them from putting in a claim. And all claims would have to be put on Monday. Team with the worst record gets first claim priority. All those type of things that make it even. But that's how I would go about the rookie claim process. We'll get into the veteran one after I let you have a spiel.
No, actually, I really don't. I actually like that idea. There's no spiel on that one.
Fair enough.
I think you got it.
Let's get into the veteran developmental contract. So the whole idea here is these are younger guys, maybe the type of guys you would sign to future contracts after the season. You can sign them now to a developmental contract, which is essentially you have to guarantee at least 2 years. You can make it longer if you want, but it's a guarantee of 2 years. Any money given above the veteran minimum will count against salary cap. Now, you'll pay them at least the veteran minimum when they're on the team. That will put you, any money above that is put on your salary cap. You are more than able to take as much hit as you want to in these players. If you really want to pay expensively for a guy, go right ahead. When it comes to claiming these players, the same claiming process will be done. The claim on Monday, lowest team awarded. But the same idea, you have to keep that player on the active 53-man roster, or else they're offered back to the original team. And any money on that contract gets due to the new team. Again, the $500,000 dead hit happens again. But because these guys don't have draft capital put with them, per se, I'm not going to force you, because a veteran guy shouldn't have to be forced to sit around on a developmental contract. I'm not going to force draft pick compensation on these veteran guys. I will let them go freely. Of course, you're going to forfeit one of your developmental slots. You have to keep them there. But the bigger thing I think here is the contracts are normally bigger for these veteran guys who you'd sign, and they're not as long term. So I don't have as many rules as I do with protecting the rookies, because I like the idea of you protecting your rookies. The one thing I did forget to say on the rookies is if one of the rookies you keep is an undrafted free agent, you would have to use a 7th-round draft pick to claim him or better. But the veterans, I really want to give them the ability to move around. If a team wants them, get them. But still, you have the penalty of you have a $500,000 dead cap hit the next year. You lose one of your developmental slots, and you have to keep the dude on the active roster the full year. That's about all I have for the veterans last year's. Is there anything that you think is missing there, or should there be some type of more punishment for claiming one?
No, I actually don't. As long as that you keep, if you're gonna claim a person because they were gonna drop them, you have to keep them for 2 years, because you've clearly seen something that the other team didn't see, and it's got to be on the active roster if you're gonna do that.
Exactly. Now, the one thing I will say that I forgot to mention in the claim process is, so I said you're going to lose a developmental slot. Obviously, that other team can fill the developmental slot. But if the other team wants to block you, like let's say the Steelers have a young quarterback on their developmental squad. The Browns decide they want to claim this guy. The Steelers can block the claim, because all claims will be known on Tuesday, because they have to be put in by Monday. So it'll be known on business on Tuesday. By the end of business on Wednesday, the Steelers have to decide, do they want to keep that quarterback or let him go? If they want to keep him, they are, in fact, allowed to bring him to the active roster. But then the same things happen when you bring a developmental player off, you lose that spot. So if you're going to call up someone due to injury or keep them yourself, you also lose that developmental roster spot. Because the idea I have here, Laskers, is when the 90-man roster gets cut down, you, instead of cutting a player, putting him through waivers and trying to re-sign him to a practice squad, these players who are on developmental contracts, the 5 veterans you can sign prior to it, or you can sign after cuts if you want to wait. Those 5 players don't have to go through waivers. You can put them straight to the developmental squad. Any rookies that you decide to cut that you want to keep, you can put straight to the developmental squad, and then it's a way of you protecting what you view as your top asset. So you know how with practice squads, other teams can poach players you really wanted, and those guys are free to go sign with any practice squad they want. They don't have to stay with the team that drafted them or the team that signed them. This allows teams that showed interest to keep these players. And where I think it's a benefit for the players is these players, instead of getting the measly money practice squad players get actual NFL game checks, which is a huge difference in the money they make. And I guess that about wraps up my thought on the developmental squad. Lasker, is anything to say about those last few points?
No, actually, I was originally going to argue with you on that, and your point is actually very well made, because the team has to be able to try to hold those people, because you have someone you're gonna bump to the practice squad, and then they can get poached. That's you're doing that on a purpose basis. So there's a reason you did that. You knew that he wasn't quite there yet, and if you actually want to keep him, you should be able to keep him.
Yeah, I what I really don't like is, and these are the picks that it always seems to happen to me. A team takes a 6th or a 7th round guy who really fits their system. They want to develop, but the thing is, they're in win now mode, so they can't really protect him. But they're like, you know what? We can squeeze this guy through. We can keep the veteran who's slightly better now. We can squeeze this guy through at the end of cuts and make the team. But then they don't see some other team gets an injury, and all of a sudden that guy now gets a roster spot, which he should be able to. But in this scenario, the guys got shipped to the developmental squad. When the claim gets put in, the other team can be like, whoa, 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 we didn't want to lose him. We will now, in fact, cut that mid-tier veteran and bring this guy back. The example I think most recently is a guy the Steelers brought back this year, I believe, on a futures contract, Quincy Roche, the defensive end fringe guy from Miami who was a 6th-round pick, looked decent in the preseason. We cut him. We thought he was going to make the practice squad, but then the Giants had an injury and ended up just signing him to the active roster. That's the move he should have made, but I feel there should have been a way for the Steelers to be able to protect their own draft pick, or any team. Of course, I use the Steelers because they're the ones I know.
And I'm okay with that, I get exactly what you're saying. There should be some way to protect what you want to keep.
I agree with that. Laskers, that's my whole take on the developmental squad. Any ending thoughts from you about the idea or the premise? I mean, I know it's probably never going to happen in the NFL because either the owners or the players union won't like it. Someone will get upset, yada, yada, yada. But spring football isn't real football. We don't want to risk injury. Laskers made probably the biggest point against my whole idea right there. I do appreciate you bringing it up. But any closing thoughts on you on this? From you on this?
No, I actually don't. I don't think I have any. It's the injury is the only biggest thing on spring football that the owners will never agree with, and they should start thinking about that. But also, okay, maybe you go to flag football. I'm not really a big fan of flag football, but
at least on the quarterbacks with the way things are going. Gingy, I hope at some point you get to hear this episode because I would love to hear your thoughts on the idea of a developmental squad on an NFL roster. But that's all I had for today. Laskers, any closing topics from you?
Definitely not.
All right. Well, hopefully we have more Steelers stuff coming in the future. I will get Bugaboo out here for an episode at some point. Maybe he'll be out here with Laskers because Laskers is breaking into off-season mode more than anyone ever has. I think he's made it to week 3 of the off-season. I don't know what to do with a co-host this late into the off-season other than say, hey, Laskers, do you have a shout-out?
No, I actually do not have a shout-out at all.
Shame. And the reason I say shame is clearly the shout-out has to be Hines Ward with his first ever win as a football head coach, to my knowledge, unless he coached like high school and I didn't know about it. But at least
I told you a while ago I didn't watch that much this week.
I didn't watch much XFL either. Like I said, I read the box scores. I just saw that his team happened to get a win. So good job, Hines. That's what I'm talking about. Maybe Hot Rod Woodson will be next. Who knows? We'll see about it. I guess that means it is time. I gotta let you know, I'm the Viking Donkey. That's Viking_Donkey at Twitch and Twitter. Your daily dose of Donkey with Ginger is the YouTube channel. Leave us a like, comment, follow. Tell us what you think about the developmental squad. Tell us if you think I should email the NFL office right now, because you know for sure they'll listen to me, because that's who I am. No doubt about it, baby. But anyway, I enjoy it out here. Let me know if there's any content you want, any things you want to see me talk about, the breakdown with the Laskers, with the Gingy. Maybe if it's a topic for him, we can make sure we put it on a week he shows up. If there's anything you'd love to hear Bugboo or Little George breakdown from their really focal single point expression take on football, because they're always fun to have out here. But that does it for me. Laskers, what's up?
The Laskers everywhere. And, you know, even though Gingy's not there, we're going to go with the Gingy everywhere. And he's playing some Xbox, maybe some other games. So, hit up the Gingy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You forgot to say, gents, ladies, everyone in between, get them towels nice and warmed up and waiting for next season or the draft, perhaps. Wave them if you got them. Here we go.